probably on this issue, Palestine Israel, you get more films than anything else every year, and the more or less always the same. And it's very hard editorially to wonder what to do about this, because you don't want to keep repeating the same story, the same anecdote, the same point of view. And I think that these guys have come up with something which is, when we first saw it, really stood out and really struck us as being something that made one reassess certain things. So if we could go back not just to the, what camera I use kind of angle, but what you were trying to achieve intellectually.
I think sort of the genesis of the film really came about because we were planning to do a series looking at artists who were living in exile, where their art form had some relationship to do with their politics or back home, or their relationship back home. So this was a good excuse to make a film with that. But also a lot of our close Israeli friends, we noticed that a lot of our friends were refusing to go back home. We had a lot of good Israeli friends who settled in London, and there was this sort of moral standpoint that they refused to be part of.
I was very much attached to Gilad as a musician, as a gifted musician, as the way he uses his music. And you can say that if I was someone which politically had same point of views as the Iranian government, but obviously that's not the case. So it's nothing to do with my nationality. The film stands by itself, and I'm always standing short towards that. Actually, I was just talking to David earlier on over the tea that we really tried our best to use the best comments they made in the film, and we really tried to be kind. And unfortunately, this is it. People are way too angry to even listen to the discourse, and they're way too angry to even talk to each other. And I was hoping actually this film bring them together, because I think that's where the Palestinian movement should go. Everyone should keep their hands rather than push each other out.
Well, you mean by the way that the interviews are, it seems that we are taking a more advantageous position on his behalf. Actually, look, the people we interviewed, Oliver Kam and David Aronovich, are two fairly right-wing journalists. They're not the same people as these people sitting here. So, we tried to even have opposing opinions within the oppositional camp, if you'd like to make that point. However, there are some points made, and it's up to you what you think of it. We asked questions, they answered, other people answered, and it's, we framed them as honestly, we tried to represent them as honestly as we could. That's all we could do. Yeah, it's a very complex film to make, because you've got, as I said, you're making films about somebody's ideas, and you're trying to mix that with a biography at the same time with jazz. Jazz, as we heard many times, is not the most rousing of art forms, to be polite to all the jazz lovers in the room. But jazz is not the most exciting of art forms, and there's only a certain amount of times that you can actually watch it on screen. So naturally, it's quite complicated to make a film about ideas and to couple that with a biography, with history, with all of these complex political arguments. I mean, in some ways, documentary film is not always the best medium for complex arguments. Something like a book or an essay may be a lot better. So we had a lot of these sort of challenges which we had to go over.
Yeah, I think you're right. There is always an argument about documentary films about to what extent can they carry great complexity, how much information and nuance can you kind of ram into a format. And I think you're quite right. There's always a sense in which if you watch a film like this, or any other film that you might see, which is about a serious issue, we would believe that it should actually make you go off and start reading stuff, because you need to have not only the time to reflect, but also the time to take in many different points of view. So I think there's a good point about the kind of limits of complexity.
We forgot to actually say that there are a couple of other crew members who worked very hard on the film in the audience. Antonio, the editor here, Teddy Powell, and there was Laura somewhere. Is Laura still? And Laura here. So we should just say that there are a lot more people that work very hard on the film. Thank you for your hard work. Your question is basically that the central component of the film is this idea of Jewishness, which it doesn't challenge. Yeah. So actually, in some ways, the film is split into two sections. So you've got the first section For me, the central component of the film, I think I can speak on both of our behalves, is Gilad's past, which is for us the most central component. The fact that somebody grew up in Israel, served in the IDF, saw all the things that were going on in Lebanon, and turned his back on it. That to me is the strongest thing that comes out of the film. The second half of the film brings the notion in of Jewishness. And I think if you actually re-watch the film, that's the part of the film that's under contention. That's the bit that's not set in stone. That's for you to decide. But I think if there's one central theme that comes out of the film, it's that somebody took a moral stance and turned against what was going on in their homeland. Which I think a lot of people would agree with.